welcome to CrimeDivers. I'm Laura.
And I'm Jill.
And welcome to today's episode.
Hello, everybody.
So before we start, we're just going to make an apology that we have been suffering with COVID.
Well, I already said that. I did put, I don't know if you know, I don't know if I told you, but I did put a message out last week saying that we had COVID, so there wouldn't be an episode out.
So
everybody knows
really
that.
bad, yes. Which we are, on the road to recovery. And
we don't have COVID anymore, but we still have lasting effects of COVID.
Yes, one being quite a bad cough.
Yeah, both of us. Well, you more than me. And me, when I've been talking for a while, my voice sometimes gets a bit croaky and I'm having to cough a bit and clear my throat.
So we're going to try our best.
We didn't want to take another week off.
No.
And we had a Patreon episode to get out as well, so we're recording 2 episodes today, so help, pray for our voices and our throats.
And please don't hold it against us, thank you.
Yeah, and please don't hold it against us, and we will really try our hardest not to cough or anything, but, if we do, we apologise now.
Yes.
Okay, so
where in the world are we?
We're in the USA.
And your title?
A Deadly Reunion.
Okay, shall we dive in?
Let's dive in. So before we dive in, just a wee trigger warning that we will talk. Well, we will. I haven't got off to a good start, have I?
I was going to I can't speak either.
Right. Trigger warning. We will be talking about child and animal abuse in this episode. And there will be death of a child, which I do apologise because I did say I wasn't going to do, because our last couple of episodes have been teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm going to stay away from children. And I didn't actually realise, because there's more than one death in this episode, I didn't realise till I was already writing it that I was in too far by the time I realised there was a child death in it. Okay. So if that's something that you don't want to listen to, next time there will be no children involved.
She says.
I'll try my hardest. Okay, so
We're diving in.
We're diving in now, yeah. So Stephen Pladell, or Pladell, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his name, was born in 1975 and he lived in New York with his mum. I don't know much about him as a kid, but other kids at school said he was a loner, he was a bit weird, and he got bullied. So basically that's it. I don't know anything else.
That's all we know.
Yeah, so we're going to fast forward to 1995. So Stephen's now 20. And he logged onto an online chat room, and that's where he met 15-year-old Alyssa Garcia, who lived in San Antonio in Texas. So they got friendly and they chatted, online. But soon they were texting each other every day, and then that led to phone calls every night. And as Alyssa was underage, obviously we see that as grooming.
Yeah.
And, but obviously she didn't see it like that. She just met this boy online. She was chatting to him. She was falling for him. Mm-hmm. And they decided that they wanted to
have a relationship,
be more than friends, yeah. So one day he decided to travel to San Antonio to meet her. So I looked online to see how far away they were, because obviously America, big place. So, I do find it quite funny sometimes that Americans don't seem to see distance the same way that we do, because they're like, oh, no, they're only in the next state, or they're only so far away, and we're thinking, that's a long way to travel, you know what I mean? But they seem
potentially that's one end of the country to the other for us.
Yeah, but I think because it's such a big place, they don't see it as the distances the same way that we see them. But the internet mostly told me, because I did get different. I mean, surely there's only one answer to that question.
I would thought so.
But the internet mostly told me that it was about 3.5 hours to fly from New York to Texas. But a couple of sites did say that it was 5.5.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's a good few hours, shall we say?
Yeah,
and that's flying. So
and that's flying. I'm not actually sure if he flew or he drove, because I know later on he did drive.
For us to fly that amount of hours, that would take us to somewhere like Spain. Or Turkey. You
could fly from
most places in Europe, I think, for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think from England anyway. I know it takes a bit longer from Scotland, but I think from England, I think you can fly to Spain, like, you know, sort of Benidorm, like mainland Spain and stuff like that, in about 2.5 hours, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, when I go to Gran Canaria, which is the Canary Islands from, say, Edinburgh, that's like 4 hours, just over 4 hours. So, you know, we're completely out of our country. But yeah, in America, it's like, yeah, it's just, you know, that doesn't seem that far to them.
Yeah, just another state.
My voice is starting to get croaky already, sorry.
Keep it watered.
Yeah, I'm just going to have a drink. So I said, I don't actually know if he flew or if he drove, because later on in this case he does actually drive.
Right.
But I'm just kind of pointing out that it's a long way to go to see an underage girl that you've never met.
Yeah.
So to me that screams kind of predator, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And especially when Stephen didn't tell anyone about Alyssa. You know, so to me, again, that just seems like he knows that he's doing something wrong.
Yeah,
if he's not telling anybody
Yeah,
about
because it's
her.
not like you have to shout it necessarily from the rooftops to people, but you would probably mention to somebody, oh, I've met somebody, so I'm going to go and meet them, or whatever.
Surely, I mean, surely you would mention, I think he was living with his mum at the time, so surely you'd say to your mum, oh, by the way, I'm just going to, because I'm going to Texas, so I've met this girl, blah, blah, but because she was underage, then he obviously knew he was doing wrong because he didn't tell anybody.
Right.
And when he went to, like as I said, like when he went to Texas, he didn't tell anybody that he was going, and he met up with Alyssa in secret. So I'm not sure if he travelled to Texas more than once, but when he did go there, he started a sexual relationship with Alyssa. And, you know, he did all the typical grooming type behaviours, like being charming, treating her like a princess, promising her the world. And, of course, she didn't know any better. She's 15. And she became infatuated with him because, well, of course she would.
Yeah, because if he's sharing her with attention and all those nice things, then I get it.
And, of course, she thought she was in love with him. So she soon ran away with Stephen back to New York, where he lived, and she was still only 15 at this point, so it must have happened quite quickly. So she ran away with him, moved to New York with him, and by the time she was 16, she was pregnant.
Of course.
So in January 1998, when she was 17, Alyssa gave birth to a baby girl, and they named her Denise. However, once Denise was born, Alyssa noticed a change in Stephen. He had been great before the baby came along, as I've already said. You know, he was being kind, loving, caring, funny.
Yeah.
And Alyssa said his true colours came out when Denise was born.
Right.
He lost his temper really easily, so she felt like she was walking on eggshells round him. And when he got angry, he would like punch the walls, he would throw things, and I can imagine it would become quite scary. So she put up with it for a while, but then he started to abuse baby Denise.
Oh dear.
I heard that cough coming, that's why I stopped there. When I know Laura's going to cough, I'll try and stop so she's not coughing over me talking. So he would shout at the baby when she cried, and sometimes he even covered her mouth. He would pinch her until she was black and blue, and sometimes, like, when he couldn't take her crying anymore, he would put her, like, in a cooler or an ice chest.
Oh my god.
So I'm assuming that's like a drinks cooler or like a wee freezer
Possibly.
type thing, like, because this is an American case, so sometimes when they use American words, I'm like, I mean, I know what a drinks cooler is, so it's like, you know, obviously one of these tiny little sort of refrigerated things.
Like a cool box, maybe?
Yeah, but I don't know what, like an ice chest, I'm assuming that's a freezer.
Must be a freezer type thing.
Yeah, well, obviously it's ice. Yeah, I don't know, but is it like, size-wise, I don't know if it was like a big chest freezer or if it was just a little thing, you know. I don't know.
They tend to have what we have, like a
chest freezer.
Yeah, but like it's like no, but like they have like longer ones. So you know, we get like the fridge freezers up tall. They sometimes have them like
like the ones in the supermarkets. The ones in Iceland when you look.
Well, that sort of but then you know have a lid to pull up.
Like a sort of chest freezer.
Aye.
Right.
But I just mean like you know how like this. I was talking about the sort of size. So you know we have like a fridge freezer.
Yeah, like, well, I've got a chest freezer and it's like half the size of a fridge freezer.
But like turned on its side, so it's like, so they don't, you'd lift that lid.
So like when we have American fridge freezers, do they not have them in America? Why are they called American fridge freezers?
Yeah, they do have some. I'm just saying that in a lot of cases that we've heard of and that we've done. when, like, you know, when they've had, like, these freezers in the basement and stuff like that, they're, like, these big, you know, see when, like, the crime programmes and stuff.
The what programmes?
Like, any crime programmes when, like, a body's found in a freezer, and it's almost like a long...
Oh, I would just call that a chest freezer.
Well, it probably is called that, but I was just trying to describe what it looks like.
Well, whatever. I don't know what the baby was put in. Like, as I said, I don't know if it was a proper size freezer or if it's... Do you get smaller one? I don't know. But it doesn't matter. But anyway. And he would put the baby in these places, one of these places. And he wouldn't shut her in. He usually wouldn't shut her in. He would put like a blanket in the door so that it wouldn't shut properly. But there was a couple of times when he did shut the door and wouldn't let Alyssa go and open it, like, for a couple of minutes. So when Alyssa eventually managed to get to the door, the poor baby was, like, gasping for air. And, like, she would grab her and, like, run into the bedroom and lock herself in the bedroom and, like, rock the baby, you know, warm her up, like, soothe her.
That's awful.
Well, yeah, I know, like, how could you do that to your baby, any baby? Mm-hmm. But Alyssa had to start thinking about what she was going to do. She couldn't keep putting her daughter through this. And I think she did consider running away with Denise, but she was only 17. She probably had no money. You know, she was a new mum. Stephen had never been able to keep a job. Obviously, she didn't even finish her education. You know, I know, obviously, being a new mum, she wouldn't have been able to get a job because she had a child to look after. Mm-hmm. Sorry. So they wouldn't have had, like, savings or anything like that. So she'd cut off her friends and family when she had ran away to New York. Mm-hmm. So she didn't really have anyone to turn to. So, and Stephen obviously knew that this would cross her mind, and he told her that if she ever left him, then he would kill himself. I hate that.
Yeah.
So she decided the best thing to do was to put Denise up for adoption. She just wanted to keep her daughter safe, and she wasn't safe as long as she was with Stephen. And he didn't object. He was like, yeah, great, get rid of the child. You know, like, he was abusing her, he obviously didn't want her.
Yeah.
He was quite happy to give Denise up, so that's what they did. So 8-month-old Denise was adopted by a couple called Anthony and Kelly Fusco. They already had a biological daughter, and once they adopted Denise, they knew that their family was complete. Mm-hmm. So they renamed Denise Katie Rose Fusco. So she's Katie now.
Right.
Instead of Denise. Although I will refer to her as Denise when I'm talking about her when she was a baby.
Right.
But you'll understand.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully.
So the Fuscos, they lived in Dover in New York, and then they later moved to the suburbs. Anthony was a correctional officer, which I think is a prison officer, I'm assuming. Mm-hmm. And Kelly was a secretary. So their life together, it was uneventful. Like, Katie had a good upbringing. Her adoptive parents were nice people. You know, she was loved. She was happy. She loved animals, and she would often take in, like, stray cats and take them to the vets, like, if they needed medical help, and she would, like, nurse them back to health. She loved art. She was a feminist, and she was a vegetarian. So although she had a happy upbringing, there was always one question on her mind. Who was her biological parents?
I take it she was told that she was adopted then.
Yeah, so I'm sure that's the same on most people who are adopted. Like, they want to know where they came from.
Of course, naturally.
So when Katie was 18, she decided that she wanted to find her biological parents. So she told her adoptive parents that she wanted to meet them and just see what they were like before because she would graduate high school. So she was going to be going to college to be studying digital advertising. So she was like, well, before I start college, I want to go meet them.
That's fair enough.
And our adoptive parents were supportive. They're like, yeah, of course. If that's what you want to do, then go for it. Like, we're here for you, like, no matter what. Mm-hmm. So just before we get to that, here's what I found out about Stephen and Alyssa after they gave her up, because obviously they had 18 years. So after giving up baby Denise, so remember, so she's Denise when she was a baby, for adoption, Alyssa decided to stay with Stephen. So they got married in 2006 when Alyssa was 26 and Stephen was 31. They moved from New York to Richmond, Virginia, and then later they moved to North Carolina. They went on to have 2 more children, 2 little girls, and that was about 10 years after Denise had been born.
Okay.
So Alyssa later said that she had more children with Stephen because they're both matured by then, and she said that Stephen didn't treat their other daughters as badly as he treated Denise. But I will tell you about that because I'm not sure I agree. But he was still a shit dad and he was abusive. Right. So Alyssa worked as a manager at T-Mobile. Mm-hmm. And Stephen stayed at home to look after the kids because he couldn't hold down a job. One day she came home from work and she heard crying coming from the bathroom. She went to see what was going on, and her three-year-old little girl was like, "Mummy, can I come out now?" And she was like, "What the hell?" That piece of shit father had told this 3-year-old little girl that she had to stand in the bath until her mum got home because she'd had an accident and wet herself and he didn't want to clean her up. So she had to stand in the bath with no water or anything in it, just in the bath. Obviously she was wet, you know, with pee down her legs or pants, whatever. And he made her stand like that until her mum got home so that her mum could clean her up. And she had been standing in that bath for hours.
What a shame. That's a sin.
That poor child. Poor child. Mm-hmm. He still had a really bad temper, and one day a neighbour's cat walked into their garage and he beat it to death. He used his hands, he used tools, he beat that cat to death. And then just chucked it in the bin.
Just like a piece of rubbish, like it in the mire.
Yeah. And then another time he almost killed another cat, but luckily that one survived. He would still throw things and punch walls, so he was still an absolute piece of shit. Mm-hmm. So I'm not quite sure that he changed.
He matured, did he?
No, exactly. So, yeah, so that was basically what they were like. Mm-hmm. So as I said, Katie decided to look for her biological parents. And she found them on Facebook, and she reached out and messaged her mum, Alyssa. So Alyssa was really excited to hear from Katie because when she gave her child up, she thought she'd never see her again. Mm-hmm. And she couldn't wait to meet her, but they were like obviously spoke to each other over Messenger for a few months, and then they got on really well, and then Katie decided that she wanted to go and meet her parents and her little sisters, who were 11 and 7 now. So she went... Oh, I'm confused. No, I'm just confused about the ages of her kids, because if she said it was 10 years after they had Katie, then Katie's 18 and the oldest would have only been 8. So it must have been more than 10 years after. Yeah, anyway. Must have. Yeah. So she went to North Carolina, and she loved being with her biological family. Sorry. Alyssa noticed that Stephen was acting different. He started wearing trendier clothes, he cut his hair, he shaved his beard, and she just assumed that he was like trying to impress his 18-year-old daughter by like acting like a cool dad, so that she would like him. And she was like, alright, okay, whatever, just get on with it. So Katie loved being with her family so much that she decided to take a gap year and go to college the following year instead. She wanted to move in with Alyssa and Stephen and her sisters in North Carolina, just to get to know them and spend like a year with them, just, spending time together. Yeah. And college could wait for a year. Mm-hmm. So she went back home to get her stuff in New York, told her adoptive parents that she was moving out for a year. Her adoptive parents, they were a bit apprehensive about it, but they didn't know anything about the abuse that Stephen had put her through when she was a baby. So of course, and of course they wouldn't know anything about what he was. They didn't know anything about what they were like. No. To them, they were just apprehensive because these were strangers, basically. Yeah. They just didn't know anything about Alyssa and Stephen. So, but they wanted to be supportive to Katie, so they were like, "Yep, we're here. Yeah. Just go for it. Yeah. Give us a call every now and again. Let us know how you're getting on. Like, we'll visit. You can visit, whatever." So she packed some stuff and she went to live with her biological parents. But by this time, things weren't great between Alyssa and Stephen, and they weren't even sleeping in the same bed now. Stephen was sleeping on the couch every night, as they had given up their other bedroom for Katie to sleep in. Mm-hmm. Alyssa would be out of work all day, so she didn't get to spend as much time as she would have liked with Katie. Mm-hmm. But someone had to pay the bills, and Stephen certainly wasn't doing it.
Nope.
So Katie, obviously, she wasn't working or going to school, because she was just having a gap year. So she would spend her days at home with Stephen and her sisters when they were... I suppose this would be the summer because she graduated from... So the little kids would be home as well. But after 6 weeks of Katie moving in, Stephen was now sleeping on the floor in her bedroom instead of the couch.
Right.
So Alyssa, understandably, was very uncomfortable with this, and she was asked Stephen, what are you doing? Katie was an 18-year-old girl, like, why would she want her dad sleeping on the floor in her room? Mm-hmm. And he basically just told her to mind her own beeswax. So Alyssa went to Katie and told her that she wasn't comfortable with it. And she, I don't know if she actually told Katie at this point that Stephen had abused her as a baby, or if she already knew, if she'd already told her, but she did know.
Right.
She did say, look, this is the guy that abused you as a baby. But Katie just shrugged off, and she's like, he's different now, he's matured, you know, like, I'm older, he's older, it's fine. Everyone's all good. And of course, like, Alyssa knew how Stephen treated the younger girls, but I'm not sure if Katie knew that her dad was abusing them. Like, I don't know if she just thought that he'd abused her as a baby, but he'd matured, changed, and treated the other girls differently. I don't know. So a big argument broke out about Stephen sleeping in Katie's room because Alyssa had just had enough. It was weird.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, and they weren't getting on anyway. And she was scared that Stephen could be manipulating Katie as he was the one who was spending so much time with her, and he could be saying all sorts to turn her against Alyssa because, like, him and Alyssa weren't getting on, and she's like, they're spending all this time together. Like, he could be telling Katie that it was her that had abused her when they were a child, and that's why they gave her up for adoption. She was just really worried that, she just didn't know what was going on. So she just didn't like it, and she voiced that. Katie got involved in the argument, and she was sticking up for Stephen, saying there was nothing wrong with what he was doing. So, like, he was just sleeping in the room. They were just getting to know each other. They were bonding. There was no need for Alyssa to be shouting about it. So the argument ended with Stephen storming out the house and taking Katie with him.
Right.
And they did come back later, but things just got worse between him and Alyssa. And eventually, in November 2016, 3 months after that argument, Alyssa plucked up the courage to leave him. She took the two younger daughters and moved out, and she filed for divorce.
Okay.
So they co-parented the girls, and they split their time between their mum's house and their dad's house, where Sorry. So Katie was still living with him in his house, so the little girls would stay, So
now just the two of them on their own?
Yeah, with the girls. I don't know what they were co-parenting, so.
Right, yeah.
And one day, Alyssa read her older daughter's diary. She was tidying her room, came across that. She shouldn't be reading your daughter's diary, but it's probably just as well she did. And I did see a photo of it online, of this particular page of the diary. Mm-hmm. But however old this child was, like, as I said, I mean, I thought she would have only been 8 if she was born 10 years after Katie, but most sources say that she was 11, some say she was 12. So she's about 11 or 12. Mm-hmm. The writing's not great. It's, an 11 or 12-year-old.
Yeah.
So I couldn't make a lot of it out. Mm-hmm. But I did make out that he told the younger girls that they had to call Katie their stepmom now, not their sister.
Okay.
One bit that I could read was, quote, "But Katie is my sister. She's probably his wife. Does she see me as her daughter or her sister?" End quote. Okay. So now that's got to be confusing for a kid.
Absolutely.
I'm not, as I said, I mean, however old she was, whether she was 8, 11, 12, whatever age she was, that's got to be confusing. Mm-hmm. Because this big sister has only just came into her life.
Oh, yeah.
And the other one as well.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden they've got a new sister. Mm-hmm. And then they're having to call her stepmom. Like, what the hell?
And that's just weird.
Of course. They must have been like, what the hell? Like, I don't know.
It doesn't even like she's a half-sister or anything. She's like a full sister.
A full sister, yeah. And the girl had also wrote in her diary that Katie was pregnant. She said that her dad called Katie's baby his baby. So she was wondering, did her dad make Katie pregnant? Because this is obviously her just kind of, her wonderings in her diary. So, of course, Alyssa was like, what the actual fuck? Mm-hmm. Was her ex-husband and their daughter having a sexual relationship? And now, was she pregnant with her granddaughter?
Oh my god, that's just really insane.
So, of course, she got right on the phone to Stephen, like, freaking out, which, obviously, and, like, what the hell is going on? So she said later, so, quote, so I called him and I said, so there was something in this journal that I should be concerned about. I said, is Katie pregnant with your baby? He said, I thought you already knew.
How would that be?
Well, I'll tell you how that could be. So I just tore into him. I was screaming. I said, is this why you've been trying to rush our divorce? Are you trying to marry her? And he said, yes.
How?
He said that his mother knew. He said that Katie's adoptive parents knew, and they didn't like it at first, but they've all come to accept it.
How?
End quote.
That's
so
her actual dad.
Yeah. So he's saying, oh, I thought you knew. So he's just assuming that somebody else has told her. Like, what? So it's just casual news that you just say, by the way, your daughter and my daughter, our daughter together, is pregnant with my child. So our granddaughter is my grandchild is now, our grandchild is also my child.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Like, So you think that none of that is okay, but do you think that it's okay to hear that from somebody else?
No, definitely not, no.
So they got off the phone, and Alyssa quite rightly phoned the police and told them that her husband and their daughter were having an incestuous relationship. She told them that Katie was still just a kid, and she wasn't 18, and Stephen was manipulating her and grooming her. So the police went to the house, and they questioned the younger girls, and they told them that their dad and Katie slept in the same bed, and that she was pregnant. They also told them that their dad had told them to stop calling Katie their big sister and to call her mum, and to not tell anyone about his and Katie's relationship because their friends at school would make fun of them.
Which means they knew there was something wrong.
Well, of course. But you're telling your children they're not allowed to tell anybody, but you expect their mum to know.
Yeah.
So who exactly were you expecting to tell, Alyssa? Your mum? This kid's great-grandmother and grandmother?
Yourself?
I'm sorry, I just got a notification saying we've got a new subscriber on YouTube. Had one yesterday and one today. So in July 2017, Stephen and his biological daughter, Katie, got married.
How?
Well, I'm going to tell you how. It's not legal. She was heavily pregnant, but I think she was about 8 months pregnant by now. And she wore a tight little black dress. And, like, I've seen the wedding photos. And, like, they're kissing by the water. It looks all very romantic. And there's also a photo with their parents. So Stephen's mum was there. So that's Katie's biological grandma. Like, what? Why are you standing there while your son is marrying your granddaughter who is pregnant with your great-grandchild?
That is, no.
Like, that's all kinds of fucked up. Katie's adoptive parents were also there, and I'm also wondering, why the hell did anybody let it go ahead? Katie and Stephen had lied on the wedding forms, because of course it's illegal for incestuous couples to get married. So any of those parents could have simply said they are father and daughter, and they wouldn't have been allowed to marry. And like, Katie's adoptive parents said that they didn't like it, but they didn't want to lose Katie, so there was nothing that they could do. But I'm thinking, but you could have just spoke up and said they're father and daughter.
Exactly. Like, I'm not afraid, but that's just wrong.
It is so wrong
on so many levels.
And for not so much the adoptive parents to go, I mean, like, but the actual biological
I don't know, like,
grandparent, how could she stand there? What do you mean you don't know?
I mean, the adoptive parents, I just don't know, like, how anybody...
No, that's what I'm saying, but to me, it's not as bad as a biological parent standing there. But
then to me, like, even, I know they obviously adopted her, but when she was a baby, but they're, alright, not technically biological by blood, but they're, they've had her since she was a baby, so she's as good as...
No, I get you, I agree with you totally, but what I'm saying is, as the biological side of things, as in she's pregnant and whatnot, so this woman is standing there while her grandchild is her great-grandchild is actually her grandchild as well, and on a biological level, why is she not concerned about that? Like as in, is this child going to have difficulties, you know, special needs, like all that kind of stuff.
Exactly, because there's, you know, that's been the case, isn't it? If there's been a child born out of incestual relationships,
it does often, yeah,
often come with some difficulties.
Which is probably a massive big reason about why it's illegal.
Well, I don't know why it shouldn't be. It should be. It's just not right.
Well, it is illegal, and as I said, they lied, because it's not like when you get married. I mean, we're both married, so we know that you just get forms to fill out. It's not like they're taking DNA tests or anything, you know. It's just like, are you related? And you just tick a box saying no, and that's it. So,
and obviously they do have different names. So.
Yeah, they've got different names. So unless somebody speaks up, nobody's going to know that they're actually related. So, yeah, that's all kind of fucked up for all the parents, of course. But as I said, like, just as a genetic thing, I was kind of trying to get across. Anyway, so on the 1st of September 2017, Katie gave birth to a little boy, which is why I don't know why I was saying granddaughter earlier on, because he was a boy. Mm-hmm. No, and they called him Bennett. So eventually, on the 27th of January 2018, 19-year-old Katie and 42-year-old Stephen were arrested and charged with incest, adultery, and contributing to delinquency. So little baby Bennett, he went to stay with Stephen's mum while this was happening, because they got put in jail. Mm-hmm. So Stephen got a lawyer, and his lawyer maintained that Stephen's relationship with Katie was consensual, and he said that Stephen had been head over heels in love with his daughter, and this had outweighed the issue of them being biologically related. And he cited Stephen's marital problems as a factor. So he basically said that because they hadn't known each other before, they had a sexual relationship, then it made it more understandable. And because he was having marital problems with his wife, that kind of was a factor in that he decided to go on and have a sexual relationship with his daughter.
Why is that?
Well, exactly.
Okay, then.
So, and there was actually people who supported their relationship, and a GoFundMe was set up for the legal fees to get them out of jail. And the comments on the page were pretty concerning, like, leave them alone, they're two consenting adults in love, like, let them get on with it. And it's like, but how? Yes, they're adults.
But they're related.
But they're related. That's just wrong, and no.
I can't even have an argument for saying that that's okay in any...
No, there's not one single thing that we, obviously these people can, but for... in our opinions, that we could say that was in favour.
No.
Nothing. No. Absolutely nothing.
Not at all.
So, they made enough money to pay the bail, which I think was actually quite high, but because these GoFundMe all these people were paying all this money. So they made enough money to pay the bail, and they both got out of jail. But they had a no contact order, so they weren't allowed to see each other. Mm-hmm. So Katie moved back to New York to her adoptive parents, and Stephen went back to the house that he'd lived in with Katie, and his mum got full custody of Bennett.
Right.
So by April of that year, Katie decided that she didn't want to be with Stephen anymore. So, I mean, I don't know if it's right or not, but like, it went, in my opinion, she probably got back home, started seeing all her friends, spoke to her family, and they've already, they've probably talked to her and kind of made her see sense and, made her realise, like, this is wrong.
Or Dr. Parent should have bloody spoke to her and made her see sense before the fact.
Well, they should have, but I think what the case seems to be is they just didn't want to lose her, so they've just kind of went along with it. So they were so desperate to keep her, but what's done was done, and I think probably more to the fact is probably her friends. She's probably got back to, because she had friends that she grew up with, and they've probably been like out living their best life, like having fun, dating people their own age, like I don't know, partying, doing whatever 18, 19-year-olds do.
Yeah.
And she's kind of went, oh, this is fun. This isn't, my friends aren't married to their 42-year-old dads and having kids with them. So whatever happened, anyway, she saw sense. Mm-hmm. And she called Stephen and she told him that it was over. And as you can imagine, he wasn't happy. So he was absolutely furious. He was raging. And he went to his mum's house, who lived close by. Remember, she had custody of Bennett. So he went and picked up the baby. And although his mum had full custody, there was no restrictions on access to him. So it was perfectly alright for Stephen to go and pick him up, take him out, like, you know, no restrictions. So it was the 11th of April 2018 and about 7 p.m. when he picked Bennett up. He told his mum that he was taking Bennett to Katie so that Katie could have him until their trial. And although his mum knew that he wasn't allowed any contact with Katie, she just let him take the baby and drive off. As I said, there was no restrictions with the baby, but then he wasn't allowed to see Katie, so he shouldn't have been allowed to be driving.
And the fact that she's agreed to let him take her until the trial, well, no, you've got full custody of this child. So why are you allowing that to happen as well? Like, fine, if it was for like the day or something and they were going to visit, then yeah, but he's saying until the trial. So when is the trial? We don't, you know, is that months, weeks? You know,
but I don't know, I'm not making up excuses for her, but it could have been hard for her not to let him take. I mean, if he's furious, you know, she's a 70-year-old woman. We all know he's got a bad temper. He was furious as it is. She might not have had much of a choice of him coming in and taking that child.
True.
So, you know, but anyway. But Stephen didn't drive to New York. He took Bennett back to his house and he killed him. Some sources say that he shot him. Other sources say that he suffocated him. So I'm not sure how, but he killed that poor, and I think he was about 8 months old. He killed that little baby because he was pissed off at Katie for ending it. So he killed his own child, his own grandchild, because he was raging. So he put Bennett's body in a cupboard, and then he got in his car, and then he drove to New York. He drove all night to New York. And he parked in like a car park across the road from Katie's house and just sat and watched the house. He knew that Katie and her adoptive dad, Anthony, would be going to visit Katie's grandma, as that was their routine every Tuesday and Thursday, because her grandma paid Katie to clean her house twice a week. And her dad would drive her there. So Stephen knew this, so he watched and waited until they left the house on that Thursday morning, and he followed them. So they drove for a while. And at some point, Katie and Anthony stopped at a red light. Stephen pulled up next to them, grabbed his gun, and just started shooting at them. He killed them at the scene, and then he just drove away. The following morning, he called his mum and told her what he had done, and she called the police. So they obviously immediately started looking for Stephen. I mean, they already knew that they had been killed, but they didn't know who had done it. I mean, a car had just pulled up and started shooting, so... But obviously once they realised it was Stephen who had done it, so they started looking for his car, and they found his car about 25 miles away from where he had shot and killed his daughter and her adoptive dad. And when they looked inside the car, they found Stephen's dead body, and he had shot himself in the head.
Coward.
So he killed his own son, who was also his grandson, killed his biological daughter, who was also his wife, and killed her adoptive father because he was pissed off that she finished the illegal relationship that they were having. So she was in the right, she was finishing it, she was saying, right, this can't happen anymore, and he got himself in a rage and went on a killing spree.
Wow, that's just crazy.
Horrendous, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And as I said at the start, I didn't realise till I was sort of a bit through that he actually killed the baby. Like, I mean, when I first started reading it, I knew that he'd killed Katie and Anthony, and I didn't realise that he'd actually killed, I think he was about 8 months old, that poor child.
Yeah, that's absolutely awful.
So, thank you to everybody for listening. I hope our coughing and our croakiness wasn't too bad, and we'll try, hopefully we'll be better next week.
Fingers crossed.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.